Back in 2015, I wrote a piece entitled "My Ideal Bike is a Nightmare." And this bike reminds me a bit of that piece. Now, no, I'm not throwing Cannondale under the bus. This bike is not a nightmare, but my point of that old article was that I love the idea of complete integration, but the actual execution of said integration can be a total mess. In this video, I want to talk about what I love about this bike and what makes me bananas about it. This is the Cannondale Synapse RLE. Radar, lights, electronic drivetrain. As the name implies, there is integration, sort of those three things, and all built into a bike that is an excellent all-around endurance bike. I love how this bike handles and feels. Cannondale has long done a great job with the back end of the Synapse feeling nice and cushy, and the geometry, longer top tube. Cannondale's been doing that for a while, and other companies are calling that progressive. Cannondale's like, yeah, where you been? We've been at that for a while. So let's dig into how the integration works, how the integration does not work, what I'd give a thumbs up to, and what I give a thumbs down to. So a bit more on that ideal bike being a nightmare. 2015, part of the prompt was a bike called the X Leopard. This company had generated something like 15 million in financing, raised a huge Kickstarter campaign, and part of its shtick was that everything was integrated and built into this aero frame. You had lights built into the frame, you had a computer built into the stem. It looked very slick, and it was a terrible bicycle. It was it was one bike, at least to my knowledge, that Bike Radar, for whom I wrote that piece, ever gave a 1-star review. Usually reviews would fall in like the 3 to 4.5 range, and even when bikes weren't great, you give them like a 2.5. But Warren Rossiter declared this X Leopard a complete stinker. This Cannondale is not a complete stinker by any stretch, and let's look at some of the similarities to how this Synapse relates to that bike and how it's totally different. So, for starters, the RLE. Radar is Garmin radar. Lights are Design lights. And electronic drivetrain, is Shimano. For starters, that is a huge difference than one bike brand like X Leopard that you've never heard of because it went away building its own stuff. Often we see a company that's very good at one thing trying to do something outside its lane, so to speak, and they don't do it very well. I think Cannondale recognized, hey, there's already brands that do these pieces, the radar, the lights, the drivetrains very well. Let's just incorporate those into what we do well, which is the bike frames. So in that aspect, this is a great system. Having lights, running lights, is a positive thing, a good safety thing. You may be a fan of a radar. Also, the radar works with most modern head units, be it Garmin's own units or those from others like Stages or Wahoo or Hammerhead. So it's not an exclusivity thing, so that's a positive. Often integration means incompatibility. Like an integrated bar stem means it's completely incompatible with other bar stems. So in that aspect, that's a positive. My primary frustration with this RLE system, which all runs on a single battery, is twofold. One, the hard wiring bolts everything completely into place. Some of these pieces you can't remove at all. Some you have to dig into the down tube to disconnect, and you can take the front off. You can take the radar off. The back light the wiring is so entangled in here that can't come off. Why would you want to take that off? Well, maybe you wouldn't want to on a regular basis, but sometimes, like if you wanted to race the bike like I did at Belgian Waffle Ride, California, you want it as light as possible. Or if the battery dies, it'd be nice to be able to pop one thing off and pop on another thing. So here you're committed to this system. The battery works pretty well. It takes forever to charge once it dies. And that's another thing where, like, if this is dead, you can't just pop off the front light or the rear light and put on another that you may have sitting around in the garage. You know, perhaps that's on me as a person who doesn't stay on top of charging things like the Di2 as often as they should. But to me, being bolted to a system is a bit frustrating. My second related gripe is that while those three things run off a single battery, not all the things that require battery on the bike run off of this. For instance, the Garmin, or whatever your head unit is. It would be nice if this battery could run up to and charge the Garmin, or even charge your phone for that matter. But these things are hardwired ports, not just simple pop on, pop off ports. It seems like that would be, from my completely non-engineering brain, a simple thing just to have an extra wire, USB wire, that you could pop into your Garmin. So that'd be one less thing to charge. Similarly, Di2 still requires its own Di2 battery. If you've got a power meter, then that's another thing, etc., etc. So it's not quite an all-in-one encompassing system the way your car is. You know, how ridiculous would it be if your car radio required one battery and your lights required another, and the stuff on the dashboard all required different batteries? It would be ridiculous. But that's sort of where we are in the bike world. So Cannondale with its smart sense, we're getting closer, but we're not quite there as far as having all the things running off of a single battery and having the consumer choice for putting in, you know, plugging in, disconnecting the things that we like best. Things I dig about the system is some of the automation. You know, there's a cadence sensor, a speed sensor on the wheel. So once we get rolling, wait for it. Hello. There it is. Once you start rolling, the front light comes on, the rear light comes on, and your radar comes on. The type of flashing can be set with an app. Of course there's an app. That's, you know, a positive and negative. It's kind of annoying to have to dig out your phone if you want to make tweaks, but you can also just press the button at the back of the light to move through some different settings. Or if you just press and hold, the thing goes off completely. I'm happy to say that the ride is supported in 2023 by Feedback Sports, which makes this sweet sprint stand. Been seeing these at World Tour races with mechanics the likes of Quick Step for years. I asked Feedback when I first started this out, hey, can I get one of these stands to showcase bikes on? And he was agreeable to supporting me when the ride had all of like 4 followers when I was starting this out. So thanks, Feedback Sports, appreciate the support. The app lets you check the power level, which you can also just check by pressing here, or you can go through the different settings of high visibility, twilight, power saver, and pulsing. It can also be tweaked to adjust, auto adjust in low light, or brake alert. When you rapidly slow down, this lights up as if you'd hit the brake in your car, and also react to radar targets. If and when your radar senses a car is coming up, it can change the light frequency, which has been shown to alert drivers more so than just a steady pulse. So that's all generally cool stuff. So bottom line on the RLE, I think all 3 of those letters are great things. Radar, lights, electronic, drivetrains. I'm a fan of all of these. I like the idea of many of them being plugged into a single battery, although the Di2E is not plugged into this battery. I just wish a couple things. One, you could unplug and disconnect pieces when you want, and plug in other pieces that require juice that are not bolted, hardwired into the system. So those would be my wishes for the next iteration of RLE. Let's talk about things that I dig. One, the pricing range. You know, sometimes the small brands get more love on social media as a cooler thing, but the big brands are often able to do a better job at offering a wider range of pricing. This is the Super Gucci modeled Shimano Dura-Ace 12-speed. Di2 goes for like 9 grand. The Cannondale Synapse range starts at 3 grand for Shimano Tiagra. For these integrated models, you've got 3 options. RLE has all the things. The base model L is just the lights. The RL is the lights and the radar, and then the RLE is those plus electronic drivetrain. The RLE models range from 5,500 for Shimano Ultegra Di2, 7,000 for Shimano GRX, and then 9K for this guy here. I like how this handles and feels. It can take up to a 35 mil tire. It comes with these very supple Vittoria Corsa 30 mil tires, which make this bike feel extra great. The Synapse design in general has long been a nice cushy ride. I used to talk about the Synapse feeling like you've got a tire going soft, but in a good way. Like after riding on rigid bikes, particularly like, you know, like an aero road race bike, you get on something like this, and it's like, am my tire going soft? Like, no, it's just kind of cushy. You know, you can attribute some of that to the seat post, and you know, some of that to the drop stay and the frame design. Bottom line, it's a comfortable bike. As I mentioned at the top of the video, it's what other bike brands are calling progressive. This 56 has got closer to a 57 centimeter, sorry, top tube. Front end is still rather racy at over 73 degrees in this 56 size. The bar stem is quasi-integrated in that you can adjust the angle of the bar, and since you can buy Cannondale bikes through a dealer, you could probably get a different bar stem configuration if your sizing needs require it. I love the feel of the new Shimano Dura-Ace, both in the hand, the fact that the buttons control the Garmin, the silkiness of the braking, the fact that there's more separation between the pads and the rotors, so after long hard braking, it's much less prone to squealing or that post chishing, 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 chishing that you'd often get after long descents when your rotors have expanded a bit due to the heat. So that's obviously not specific to this bike, but any bike with a new Shimano Dura-Ace Di2 is pretty easy for me to appreciate in that aspect. Another way that the bolted in, fully integrated, can't change it if you want to system drives me bananas is you can't put a saddlebag on the thing. Come on, y'all. I've tried a bunch of different designs and this just blocks that. So I end up putting my flat fixings in a cage. And I'm guessing that the type of folks who are up for spending 5K, 7K, 9K on a bike ride enough that they want to be able to use 2 bottles and put the flat fixings here. Of course, you've got other options. You can run a frame bag, which is something that I did a bit. This also has bolts down below, so you can put a cage with your flat fixings there if that doesn't offend your delicate roadie sensibilities the way it does mine. But the fact that you can't put on a saddlebag here, that's frustration. You also have bolts up top should you want to run a bento box. That might not quite work for flat fixings, but that is another storage option. Speaking of bags, the fact that this light is bolted in place kind of negates a handlebar bag should you want to run such a thing. So, Cannondale Synapse RLE. Pretty cool, just not all the way cool yet. I'm hopeful for what this points to in the future. Radar is a positive thing, running lights are a positive thing. The fact that the lights can react to cars coming up behind you, that's all good stuff. Would love to see more integration options like that from other brands in the future. I like the idea of integration. I'm just hopeful that said integration will come with more consumer-friendly options that allow us to plug and play with different pieces, including the drivetrain, in the future. That's my take on this bike. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and whatever bike you're riding, whatever lights you're running, enjoy that ride. did a bike throw with my head down and I nearly teed you. Hope you got that.